Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You can give it to me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Could I get the book, please? We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 8, text number 33. Dhyos Tat. Okay, I can't see from here. Satot. Oh, that's a hard one. Satot Kshipta. Vimana. Sankula. Protsarpada Kshma Cha Pada Vipidata Shaila Samutpetur Amushya Ramhasa Tattejasa Kham Kakubho Na Rejire Dhyostad Satot Kshipta Vimana Sankula Protsarpata Kshma Chapada Bhipidata Shaila Samutpeturamushyaram Hasa Tattejasakam Kakubho Narejire Dhyostat Satot Kshipta Vimana Sankula Protsarpata Kshma Chapadabhabhidata Shaila Samutpeturamushyaram Hasa Tattejasakam Kakubho Narejire Dhyostat Satot Kshipta Vimana Sankula Protsarpata Kshma Chapadabhipidata Shaila Samutpeturamushyaram Hasa Tattejasakam Kakubho Narejire Vimana Sankula Protsarpata Kshma Chapabhada Shaila Samutpeturamushyaram Hasa Tattejasakam Kakubho Narejire Protsarpata Kshma Chapadabhi Tattejasakam Vimana Sankula Anybody else? Chad looks like he's considering it. Anybody else? Online? Tapas? He's actually in New York. I just remembered. Okay. Dios. Dyohu. Outer space. Tatsarta. By his hair. Utkripta. Thrown up. Vimana Sankula. Filled with airplanes. Protsarpada. Slipped out of place. Kshma. The planet Earth. Cha. Also. Pada abhipidata. Distressed due to the heavy weight of the lotus feet of the Lord. Shailaha. The hills and mountains. Samutpetuhu. Sprang up. Amushya. Of that one, the Lord. Ramhasa. Due to the intolerable force. Tat tejasa. By his effulgence. Come. The sky. Kakubhaha. The 10 directions. Na rejire. Did not shine. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: airplanes were thrown into outer space and the upper planetary system by the hair on Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva's head. Because of the pressure from the Lord's lotus feet, the earth appeared to slip from its position, and all the hills and mountains sprang up due to his intolerable force. Because of the Lord's bodily effulgence, both the sky and all directions diminished in their natural illumination. Purport: that there were airplanes flying in the sky long, long ago can be understood from this verse. Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken 5,000 years ago, and the statements of this verse prove that the symptoms of a very advanced civilization then existed, even in the upper planetary systems as well as in the lower planetary systems. Modern scientists and philosophers foolishly explain that there was no civilization prior to 3,000 years ago. But the statement of this verse nullifies such whimsical judgments. The Vedic civilization existed millions and millions of years ago. It existed since the creation of this universe, and it included arrangements all over the universe with all the modern amenities and even more. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prajayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha kalpatarupyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada's purport to this verse is a bit of an aside, in the sense that it's not directly related to the narrative. But it's a point that Srila Prabhupada makes many, many times in his purports, in his lectures and things like that, that previously there was a civilization, a Vedic civilization at a time when scientists nowadays don't consider that there was any kind of civilization. The modern scientific perspective is that somehow or other, from the beginning of the universe, these whatever little cells combined and formed single-celled organisms within the ocean. From the beginning of this planet, they formed single-cell organisms in the ocean. Then they combined more and formed more complex organisms through the evolutionary process. Eventually, those organisms became something like what we call fish, and then eventually those fish somehow or other ended up on land, and those then evolved into reptiles, and then mammals, and then primates came, and then from those primates, various stages of human or Homo sapien, evolution kind of came, and then now we have modern humans. So the Vedic version differs from that. The version of Shastra differs from that, and Srila Prabhupada specifically throughout his writings goes out of his way sometimes, as he's doing here, to make that very clear. The idea is that God is perfect, as we're hearing in this verse, and the last verse and the next few verses. These verses are speaking about the glory of Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva and the awesome, and as Mukunda used the word yesterday, the awesome and powerful and perfect nature of his person. So God, or Krishna, being all intelligent, all perfect in every way, Shadaishvarya Purna, everything that he creates also is perfect. The spiritual world is described as the perfect place. When we hear about the spiritual world in Brahma Samhita, it's described that every step is a dance and every word is a song. So, in that sense, the spiritual world is perfect. Now, one thing that other theistic traditions don't really touch on is that if you believe in a personal God, if you understand philosophically that there is a personal God who has an abode, and we have a relationship with him, and there are relationships within that abode, then there is also it follows that there is also a perfect culture. It's not just that the spiritual world is a place where it's just like some blank white, space or nothingness where it's just a bunch of living entities and God. No, it's actually a whole world as we understand it, and as most, again, theistic traditions understand it. That there's a whole world very similar to this one, in the sense that there is form, and there's sights and sounds and smells and touches and tastes and things like that. So it follows then that in that world there is a perfect culture. And so when Krishna creates this world, he also implements that perfect culture. Why? For the purpose of giving the living entities, giving the souls which have come to this world a way out. Srila Prabhupada refers to this system, and Shastra refers to this system in a general way as Varnashram Dharma, not necessarily Varnashram Dharma as just the division of ashrams and varnas, the spiritual and social orders of society. But with varnashram, there's also a whole culture. The varnas and ashrams being just a part of that. And the purpose of that culture being samsiddhir haritoshanam. The perfection of that culture being dharma svanashtatas, atapumbir dudashreshtam varnashrama vibhagashaha svanushtatasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. That of the varnashram society, of the Vedic civilization, the perfection of that, the perfection of all constitutional activities within that is the pleasure of Lord Krishna. And from the pleasure of Lord Krishna, then one can go back home, back to Godhead, which is the goal of our life. One can be reinstated in their relationship with Krishna by the mercy of Krishna, if one pleases him. So, the spiritual world is perfect, and when Krishna creates the material world, he also creates it perfectly. Now one might say, well, how can this material world be perfect? Because it seems like there are so many faults, and Shastra confirms, Kaler doshanite rajan, that there is actually, that this Kali Yuga especially is an ocean of faults. But although this world is full of faults or is imperfect, it's perfectly imperfect. In the sense that it's meant to be imperfect. It's not that Krishna can't help but make perfect things, but if he so chooses, he can create imperfect things, and Krishna's done that with the material world. So in the material world, he starts it out. The world begins with Satya Yuga, in which the Vedic culture, and also Dvapara Yuga and Treta Yuga to degrees, in which the Vedic culture is perfectly established. But as time goes on, things tend to degrade. That's the Vedic view, which is somewhat different than the, well, not somewhat different, it's actually completely opposite to the modern view, that as time goes on, things are getting better. Most people have the idea that, again, that at one point we were hunter-gatherers, and then as time went on, we became more and more technologically advanced, and now we have cars and whatever. Many countries have gone through industrial revolutions in which, yes, machinery developed and technology developed such that production could increase, and because production increased, people could get goods very quickly that they previously couldn't, and because they have access to commodities and necessities also so readily, then they can live very comfortable lives, and things become automated, so people don't have to toil as much. Means their work is less physical. But although the idea is that modern amenities provide convenience and things are getting better and things that are new must be better, still we see that the trade-off for such a so-called civilization is that, like Srila Prabhupada says, or has said, that this opulent civilization doesn't even have the opulence of a moment's peace of mind. We see that although people deride traditional culture for being primitive, for being backwards, for being physically very difficult to live within, we see that the modern society is actually completely impossible to live within. For instance, in Vedic culture, suicide was practically unheard of. It's just not something you do. But in modern society now, more and more people are killing themselves. Why? Because their lives are miserable. Despite their conveniences, despite the modern amenities that they have, they're miserable because they're living in an unnatural way. The trade-off from departing from Vedic civilization, traditional civilization, to something else is that you're deviating from or removing yourself from a natural condition of life. Now, the idea is that a natural condition of life can't produce anything advanced, can't produce anything meaningful, convenient like this. But our conception is the opposite, actually. Srila Prabhupada, the first sentence in this purport, Srila Prabhupada describes that there were airplanes flying in the sky long, long ago. So although Vedic culture is an ancient culture, it's not an ancient culture in the sense of being primitive, technologically primitive. That actually, if one follows the culture of Shastra, or I shouldn't say if one follows, but if the world follows the culture of Shastra, of the Vedic scriptures, then actually they would have access to technologies that modern science doesn't at this point have access to. But the linchpin, the thing that this hinges on, is again, on a societal level, there being some framework which is based on Shastra, which is based on scripture. And the society at large, the civilization at large degrades, and the world in general degrades, because that Shastric, that scriptural framework is thrown out, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakali nehamhata yogo nashta parantapa. That previously saintly kings understood Shastra, understood scripture within the disciplic succession. But over time, that succession has been broken, meaning people have stopped following scriptural injunctions. They've stopped following Shastra, and therefore their lives have degraded. On the plea of being more advanced, on the plea of having a better idea, on the plea of trying to help others and help themselves, they've given up Shastra and accepted an unnatural condition of life which in time has only proved to produce misery. And not only produce misery, but actually produce that exact thing which they were trying to avoid. Poverty in modern culture versus poverty in traditional culture, something completely different. For instance, slums. If you look at the history of any industrialized country, the first thing that comes with cities, that comes with industrialization is what? Slums. On the plea of becoming technologically advanced, which it's true, there is some technological advancement, but at the same time, those who can't keep up, or I shouldn't even say those who can't keep up, but actually a natural part of that, of the kind of technological advancement that our society is aiming for, is a certain class of society which is just completely forced into abject poverty. And again, not the kind of poverty of, for instance, like we hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita about Kolavecha Sridhar. Kolavecha Sridhar he was known to be impoverished. He sold banana leaves and he lived in a little hut. But it's nothing like even that is a many thousands of steps up from the kind of misery that people experience in the slums of modern cities, where the air is absolutely unbreathable, where the water is absolutely undrinkable. It's unsanitary in unspeakable ways. Crime and just a general dark kind of tamasic umbrella over the entire thing. So that kind of poverty is uniquely a product of modern civilization. Whereas in Vedic civilization, yes, there are That's not to say that in Vedic civilization there isn't any poverty or there isn't any lower rungs of society. But it's not in any way the same as the miserable condition which the modern society has produced. So the solution and the reason why Srila Prabhupada goes out of his way in many places to speak about this Vedic civilization is because to follow that, to get back on track, Srila Prabhupada said that he wanted to establish Vedic culture all over the world. Not just in India, not just in here, there. Actually, Srila Prabhupada said that he wanted to establish it everywhere. And why is that? Because that Vedic civilization, being rooted in Shastra, being guided by those whose lives are completely absorbed in Shastra, and being organized according to the psychophysical nature of its constituents, is a perfectly arranged system by which people can just naturally, by participating in the system, become pure devotees of Krishna. Just by engaging in one's constitutional position within Varnashram Dharma, within this Vedic civilization, one can actually become a pure devotee of Krishna. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, some devotees quote, and most devotees accept, that Srila Prabhupada described this establishment of Vedic civilization or Varnashram Dharma and the culture around Varnashram Dharma as 50% of his mission. So, therefore, Srila Prabhupada established many farms. Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish a Varnashram college wherein people can be trained according to that culture, and many other programs. Srila Prabhupada said books and farms are our two big programs. So, yes, in summary, the Vedic perspective is not that civilization is a modern thing. Civilization is actually, or the view of the Vedas is that that civilization is actually an ancient thing. And that as time goes on, that civilization actually degrades, and that the current civilization is actually in a degraded position as opposed to the original culture of the world. And that modern, Srila Prabhupada describes modern scientists and philosophers in this verse, that they don't have access to that culture because their attempts to progress in materialistic life are not based on Shastra, and therefore Srila Prabhupada wanted to emphasize the importance of Vedic civilization, the importance of Vedic culture, and also to establish it all over the world by his preaching. So I'll stop there. It's 8:22 if there's any comments or questions. Sankarshana Das.
Thank you for the class. You mentioned at one point that going back to God is a goal of life. I just had kind of a question in my mind. How many individuals in the Bhagavatam attain going back to Godhead by pure devotional service? Do you know?
Well, I mean, many of them. An exact number I couldn't tell you, but I mean, Dhruva, Parikshit. I mean, there's many. I mean, most of the stories in the Bhagavatam are about saintly kings who renounced everything and eventually went back to Godhead.
My second question is about the depression and suicide in comparison to Pariksha Maharaj, actually. Mm-hmm. If somebody could say, how is that not like an attempt of suicide, or other individuals renouncing, kind of this idea of renouncing, just giving up everything, just kind of.
Well, it's of a different nature because the motivation is different. The renunciation that we see in the Bhagavatam is for a spiritual purpose. It's for the purpose of making spiritual advancement. And in Vedic culture, actually, in one sense, suicide is actually something glorified, in the sense that if one's body is useless, then means if one's old, when one becomes very old, and their body is useless, then generally speaking, the recommendation is that one should just go to the forest and engage fully in spiritual life. And at the end, then, if one's too weak to eat, or then they can just stop eating and then engage fully in meditation and die and go back to Godhead. But it's not that, oh, my life's miserable and I don't like this and I don't like that and therefore I'm going to kill myself. It doesn't work like that. Most people commit suicide as an attempt to become relieved of suffering. But our view is that that's not actually a solution, because the suffering will continue unless you cut it out from the root. And the root of that suffering is that we have a material body and we're identifying with it. So the renunciation in the Bhagavatam is, or the renunciation of a spiritualist is different than the renunciation of a materialist, the renunciation of the body, because it's done with a proper philosophical conception. Now, of course, like, it's also not that like Parikshit Maharaj, for instance, because you were asking about Parikshit Maharaj, I should touch on that. Parikshit Maharaj also was going to die anyway. I mean, he was cursed to die in 7 days. So he said, anyway, I'm not going to waste any time eating. I'm not going to waste any time sleeping. I'm not going to, if I'm going to die anyway, I may as well just fast until I die, so that I have more time for engaging in spiritual life. It's not that Parikshit Maharaj said, okay, well, anyway, I'm going to die anyway, so he, put a bullet and he blew his brains out or something like that. It's not this. It's a much different thing. So, so yeah, the motivation is different, and the result also is different. Yeah.
Krishna, I'm wondering this question. We know that according to the conception of Vedic time, everything is always degrading. From Satya Yuga all the way to Kali Yuga, everything, the piety diminishes. And in each yuga, there's a particular yagya that living entity is supposed to perform to kind of counteract that degradation. I'm wondering if there's going to be a point in this Kali Yuga, or maybe before or in the future, where the yagya will completely, or for the most part, diminish that ignorance, and people will just take it up to such an extent in Kali Yuga that the degradation will stop or cease completely.
Not quite, no. Srila Prabhupada spoke about and not just Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Charitamrita speaks about a golden age within Kali Yuga, that, but even that golden age doesn't necessarily mean that absolutely everybody will take to the chanting of the holy names. Doesn't mean that because if that happened, then yes, then that degradation would be completely checked. But Srila Prabhupada describes that for 10,000 years the Sankirtan movement will go on, and then after that, Kali will have his way with the world. So then I think Srila Prabhupada said then you'll see the fun, in the sense that things become really, really seriously degraded. And the Sankirtan movement right now is the levy, which is holding that degradation back. The only reason that Kali Yuga isn't full on right now is because the Sankirtan movement is going on, because people are still chanting the holy names of Krishna and worshiping Krishna. But once that stops, and it will eventually, then Kali's just let loose. And then after that, after some, years, then the world is destroyed and it starts over again, then Satya Yuga comes again. So.
So still, there are going to be people who still chant, and isn't it described in the 12th canto? People will chant, but someone say the name of God, and then someone will come and kill him.
I don't remember that being there. I mean, perhaps I don't doubt it. I'm not familiar with the verse in the 12th canto you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, perhaps it will diminish, and not go away completely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any Vanaprastha ashrams?
Like in the world now?
Yeah.
There's one in LA.
Okay.
Yeah. And otherwise, I think they have devotees in Vrindavan somewhere. And yeah, other places. Mayapur also is kind of like a Vanaprastha ashram in some ways, certain places. Yeah.
I get out more. I haven't been up to LA for a while. So you have like retired people. There's an apartment there, or how?
Yeah, they have like, I mean, they have, so in the ashram they have, like, I guess you're familiar with the ashram there. It's like you have that, the brahmacharya.
Yeah,
ashram.
sure.
Yeah, you have that like bottom floor, and then you have like these stairs that go up. So the top floor, they have mostly like a serious brahmacharya ashram, and that hallway at the bottom is mostly vanaprasthas, some few brahmacharis, but it's mostly just like vanaprasthas.
But the Vanaprastha is supposed to be traveling. I guess that's.
Yeah.
I guess they're already at the holy place, so why travel?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Maybe I should check it out.
Your turn.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. In the answering questions you mentioned about interesting point about Maharaja Parikshit, that when he knew that his life 7 days only, and he engaged fully in Krishna consciousness, and interesting point that we forget about it, and this for everyone should be like this. And what do you think? How to remind each other or something like this about this importance of spiritual practice?
Well, Srila Prabhupada made the point that although Parikshit Maharaj knew he had 7 days, we don't know if we have 7 minutes. So to remember that the time of death is swiftly approaching should be motivation enough for most people that we're going to die, perhaps very soon, and our destination is determined by our consciousness, so our consciousness should be molded in such a way that we achieve a good destination after death. So one devotee brings up that when you chant your rounds and when you're engaging in some kind of devotional service in general, you can reflect on the fact that this might be the last round you ever chant, or the last mantra you ever chant. So therefore you should be satisfied with the fact that, you should chant in such a way that it's satisfactory for achieving a good destination at the time of death. So that it seems like that was Srila Prabhupada's emphasis much of the time, that anyway we're going to die, so get serious. So I don't know. I guess you could just remind. That's all. It seems. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Kevalashtaka. There's a verse about that. Nikshvasena he vishvaso kadarudo bhavishyati kirtane madhabalyad harinamaiva kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. the holy name of Shri Yeshua. And how many times did Prabhupada say? Of course, everyone was, I think, kind of puzzled about that. You should get to, so you're chanting Hare Krishna 24 hours a day. Exactly how you do that, you know, in sleep, but it can be done. When you're ready. The mic is about to go.
Jai. Okay, we have 2 minutes if there's any other.
Hare Krishna. I'll give you a 2-minute question.
Okay.
Can the Vedic civilization be truly reestablished until Kali Yuga is over with?
Yes and no. On a large scale, I mean, Srila Prabhupada has different statements in this regard, because on the one hand, Srila Prabhupada says that we want to spread this Vedic culture all over the world. We want to spread the chanting of the holy names all over the world. But on the other hand, he also says that you know, one time one reporter, I think, asked him what would happen if the entire world became Krishna conscious, and Srila Prabhupada said something like, "Don't worry, they won't." Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Don't worry, there'll always be fools like you who won't. So now within Vedic civilization, there is also room for or scope for accommodating non-devotees. They don't generally, they're considered to be the lower kind of class of people with bad habits, you know, drunkards and meat eaters and things like that. But still, Srila Prabhupada, despite that, wanted to spread it all over the world, at least beginning with our devotees, with ISKCON. And then gradually, eventually, actually, Srila Prabhupada also said at one point, he said, millions of people will flock to our farms because the cities will eventually fail. So there seems to be different statements that Srila Prabhupada makes, that on the one hand, there will always be non-devotees, there will always be, you know, low-class people, but on the other hand, we are enjoined to try to spread it all over the world as much as possible. So, but your question specifically was, is it possible till Kali Yuga is over? Well, I guess, that answers it kind of, yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Hare Krishna. Grantharaja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.